What's up everybody, welcome back. Hopefully you saw my last video where I unboxed and looked at some of the technical specs behind the DJI Action. This is DJI's newest action camera. It's supposed to be competing with the GoPro Hero 7. This is the GoPro Hero 7 Black. So I've got both the cameras here. The last video I looked at some of the technical specs and what came in the box. Today it's time to put them to the test. I'm going to be comparing the stabilization between the two, the quality of video between the two, as well as the audio between the two. And hopefully by the end of this, we'll be able to figure out which one between the Action and the GoPro is ultimately going to be a better buying decision. So let's get into it. I know what you're thinking, Braxton, this is super ghetto. And you're right, it is. But you know what? It works. And the cameras aren't going anywhere. So it works for the use case. Both cameras are going to be filming in 4K 60. You can see right off the bat that the GoPro has a little bit wider field of view than the Action does, but not by much. Okay, so let's take these out, put them to the test, and see which one ultimately comes out champion. From this point on, it's either going to be DJI or GoPro footage until we get back to the house. So first thing I kind of noticed that was actually super annoying that I didn't love about the Action was that I had to go in and I had to download the application before I could even get in and use the camera to record. Having to go in, download an application, and then install it on my phone, register the camera, like all of that. It's just kind of like extra steps that I didn't really love. It hasn't changed my mind as far as performance of the Action, but it's definitely annoying. Another thing that I'm kind of noticing is every so often the front screen, I have the front screen on the Action facing me, which is actually really nice. I do like being able to see what I'm recording, so that is definitely a win. But it does dim, and I'm sure it's a setting, but straight out of the box it does dim after a certain amount of time and then it shuts off completely. One of those settings that you can adjust, but straight out of the box just be aware that the front screen will dim and you have to touch the back screen to turn it back on. And one thing to note on that is that the GoPro does the same thing with the back screen, but you just can't tell because you can't see the back screen. So overall, if you're comparing the two, I would say that it's still a win for the Action because even though they both dim, you can at least see yourself on the front screen on the Action. But if you want that screen on all the time, it's definitely a setting that you're gonna have to go in and change for yourself. So one of the struggles that a lot of people have when they make videos is dealing with the audio. And as far as audio goes, one of the most annoying things to deal with is wind noise and dealing with that, trying to compensate for it. So there's a little bit of wind resistance, a little bit of wind noise coming in right now. This is what the audio sounds like on the GoPro Hero 7. There's wind coming this way, and then I'm also going the opposite direction of the wind, so it should be some pretty decent wind noise in the background. If not, then awesome, they've got a good microphone. And then if we switch over to the Osmo Action, this is what the Osmo Action sounds like with the same type of wind noise. Wind's still coming this way, I'm going this way. And then just from a regular audio standpoint, there's pretty much no wind resistance right now. I'm kind of going back the opposite direction I was originally coming. This is what the audio sounds like on the GoPro Hero 7. Switching over to the Osmo Action, if we are listening to the audio on the Osmo Action, this is what it sounds like with almost no wind noise. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you're just walking, not a lot of wind noise, it's not a super windy day, this is what the audio sounds like on the GoPro Hero 7. And if we switch over to the Osmo Action, this is what the Osmo Action audio sounds like, just walking. Now you're probably wondering, why am I walking down this dirt road? Well, there's a lot of green here. A lot of times with a camera that's on an auto setting, when you get into an area that is one color dominant, you tend to lose a little bit of color because the camera's trying to compensate for that color difference. And because it sees so much green in the picture, it wants to think that it needs to adjust for that and compensate, when really it doesn't. There's just a lot of green. All right, so this is the camera comparison, trying to figure out which one has the better picture, cleaner colors, more accurate colors, all of those things. Both seem like they have really good color reproduction, just looking at the tiny screen on the back. So going off rough footage, it looks like the Action might compensate a little bit more for the changes in brightness, although not by much. To me, it looks like the GoPro is oversaturating it just a little bit, but for somebody that edits their footage, I want my footage as close to the accurate colors as possible so that I have total control over it. And then as far as looking into the shadows, it looks like the GoPro might be doing a better job with lifting those shadows. Okay, so when you're walking with it and it changes light, this is what it looks like on the GoPro 7 versus the Osmo Action. So all of this footage is handheld, and it seems like they're holding up pretty good so far. but one of the bumpier things you can do is potentially be running with a GoPro. Supposedly Rocksteady and Hypersmooth work phenomenally well, so they should be able to handle someone running and smooth it out, right? I hate running. It's definitely not something that I enjoy doing, but as far as bouncy footage goes, there's definitely not really anything bouncier than trying to hold the camera out in front of you while you run. So you guys tell me what this looks like, because I can't really tell just yet, but I don't know if it looks better on the Action or the Hero 7. Either way, I'm not a runner. When I go to the gym, I do stairs. I don't even like doing stairs, but this is the ultimate test for Rocksteady and Hypersmooth. Handheld footage, running on a dirt road with your arm outstretched. Doesn't get any bumpier. Oh, I hate that. I hate running. Okay, so as far as audio quality goes, there's only one thing that I can think of that's missing, and it's the audio quality when it gets wet. Obviously, at some point, the camera's gonna get wet, and figured we might as well test it out while we're here. We'll test out the audio, as well as see how well the cameras adjust to changes in exposure or quality. Here we go. Okay, so this is audio quality on the GoPro Hero 7, and this is audio quality on the Osmo Action. As far as which one's better, it might sound a little echoey on both of them. We've killed both the batteries on both the Osmo Action as well as the GoPro Hero 7. The Hero 7 lasted less than the Osmo did, which kind of surprised me. The Hero only has about 8% left, while the Action has about 18 right now, so definitely better battery life as far as first uses go. All right, let's go back and compare the footage. Okay, so after sitting down and looking at the footage and looking through the different tests that we did, it's kind of hard to say which one exactly is going to win because both cameras have things about them that I liked more than the other. Let's start with audio. I think the audio on the Action overall takes the win just because it sounds less tinny to me. I felt like GoPro sounded a little bit tinny with the normal audio. That being said, GoPro did a way better job at blocking out the wind noise. I don't know if that has to do with mic placement or the sensitivity of it, or something that GoPro did within their software to block that noise out. But whatever it is, the GoPro did a way better job at blocking out all of that wind noise that was coming towards me as I was riding into the wind on the boosted board. Whereas with the Action, it picked up a lot more of that wind noise as I was riding into the wind. And then when I jumped in the water, the GoPro obviously had a little bit more of a difficult time clearing that water out of the microphone hole. You could kind of tell it was echoey at first and then it cleared up. Whereas the Action was pretty much clear the entire time. And that could just be completely coincidental. It could just be that water happened to not get inside the microphone hole on the Action, whereas it did on the GoPro. But in any case, that's what happened. It sounded like the GoPro had a little bit more of a difficult time clearing that water out. So overall, both cameras performed pretty well in the audio category. I don't know that I can say one outperformed the other, because both have things that were good about them and both have things that were not so great about them. As far as picture quality goes, both the GoPro and the Action reproduced pretty accurate colors, although in almost every shot that I looked at from the GoPro, it looked like it was slightly oversaturated as well as a little bit contrasty. I thought originally when I was looking at the shadows, the GoPro was doing a better job at handling those shadows. But once I got back and I downloaded the footage onto my computer, the Action definitely did a better job at not having so much contrast between the highlights and the shadows. And as far as the color reproduction, I felt like the Action was way closer to the colors that I was seeing with my eye. A good example of this is the fence that I kind of zoomed in on, the little metal gate. The GoPro looks way more yellow than it actually was. It was actually pretty faded like it shows on the Action because the sun hits that spot every day, and so that paint was pretty faded. So for me, because I like to have full control of my footage, I personally like the footage coming out of the Action better. I felt like the colors were more true to what I was seeing, and then it handled the highlights and the shadows, the difference between those two, much better than the GoPro did. But if you're looking for a camera that you can just go, point, shoot, record, take all your shots, and then it's pretty much ready to just upload to social media, GoPro is a really good option because it does add in that extra little bit of saturation. The last thing that we looked at was the stabilization between the two. Now, both of these cameras have phenomenal stabilization. That's the first thing that I wanted to say. Both cameras, no matter what you get, if you get the Hero 7 or if you get the Action, both are gonna have really fantastic stabilization. I didn't see anything in any of the shots that I got that I was like, man, that actually was a really crappy shot. That looks really bad with the stabilization. Everything looks great on all of the shots. However, I think again, my preference is gonna be the Action for this one reason. In most of the shots that I got with the Action, the background stayed completely still. Like it wasn't moving at all. I was the only thing that was bouncing up and down in that picture because I literally was bouncing up and down with the camera. But the background stayed completely still in almost every single shot. Whereas with the Hero 7, there was a little bit more shake in that background, but it did seem like it stabilized me a little bit more than the Action did. So again, I mean, pluses and minuses. The other downside to the stabilization on the Action is that it seems like the Action crops in just a little bit more than the GoPro. And that could be why I feel like the stabilization is a little bit better on the Action versus the GoPro. But downside is you lose a little bit of that field of view. So if you were to ask me if you want better stabilization, go with the Action. However, if you want a wider shot, you're gonna wanna go with the GoPro. So there you have it, guys. That is my comparison between the GoPro Hero 7 and the DJI Action. Both phenomenal cameras, both do wonders as far as image stabilization. I don't think that you would go wrong getting either one of them. I'll link both of them down in the video description, just in case you wanna check either one of them out. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which one do you think is better? Which one do you like better? Which one would you go with? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks a ton for watching, guys. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.